Hey there everyone, this is Tyler Case reporting for RUTV's Weather Watcher. Here in the Perry studio, we mainly focus on the current and local conditions around New Brunswick, but as meteorologists, we must also focus on the climate and changing trends. Recently, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released its first working group's report for the 5th assessment on climate change. This particular working group is focused on the physical basis for a changing climate. The IPCC reports have been globally considered the largest scientific report on climate, and we are lucky enough to have professors here at Rutgers that contribute to the report. Today we'll discuss the 5th assessment with Dr. Alan Robock, meteorology undergraduate director here at Rutgers and a lead author on the 5th assessment. Okay, thank you for meeting with us, Dr. Robock. And to start things off, can you briefly explain the objectives of the IPCC reports?
The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change was asked by the World Meteorological Organization and United Nations Environment Program to tell policymakers around the world what the scientists know about climate. The questions are, is the climate changing? Are humans the cause? What are the impacts? And what different things could we do about it?
Okay, and how rigorous are the IPCC reports? What would you consider to be would you consider it to be the most accurate publication on climate?
The purpose of IPCC is to assess the research that's been done up to a certain point. And I'm just finished working on the 5th assessment report. So every 5 or 6 years there was a new IPCC report done. And yes, it's a very conservative process and very rigorous process. There are committees, lead authors for each chapter, and the chapters are reviewed several iterations, several times, and the authors are required to respond to every comment that was sent in and to explain what they did or did not do in response to every comment, and all of that information is available freely. And so it's a very conservative process. Only things which are a consensus, which are agreed to by all the people working on it, end up in the report.
And how did you receive the opportunity to become one of the lead authors of the assessment?
I nominated myself. The process is that each country nominates authors to the central IPCC office, and then they decide whom to invite to be authors. And so you have to be nominated to the United States office that sends in names, and so I nominated myself for each of the 3 working groups. Working Group 1 on physical basis, Working Group 2 on impacts, Working Group 3 on responses, and I got a call from the director of the Working Group 1 asking me if I would be a lead author on one of the chapters.
Okay, and what were the main topics covered in terms of the physical basis of the climate?
Well, everything. So there's 14 different chapters. I can't go through all of them, but observations of past climate change, what observations of the different things that cause climate to change, including greenhouse gases and natural causes, volcanic eruptions and solar variations, and then how well climate models simulate the past climate, and what climate models say about future climate. They also looked into paleoclimate, so going back before there were actual thermometer observations using proxy data, and what we know about the long-term record and how that informs us about how the climate system behaves today.
And were there any findings that were drastically different from the previous reports?
No. When I first started out doing it, we asked ourselves the question, why are we doing this again? There were a few I's dotted and T's crossed, and so the new report says it's extremely likely that the warming of the past half-century was caused by humans, which is a 95% chance, which is certainty in statistical terms. Last time it was a 90% chance, so we're even more sure that humans are a large cause of the recent global warming. How ice sheets will melt in the future is better known now, and so the estimates have increased the amount of sea level rise that we expect by the end of the century, because now models are accounting for melting of ice sheets, which weren't as well understood in the past. But these are sort of nuances. There's nothing really dramatic about the new results.
And how have policymakers and the media responded to the release of these reports?
Well, Working Group 1 has released their report. Working Group 2 and Working Group 3 have not yet. The results are staggered because the output from Working Group 1, which is the physical basis, goes into the assessment done by Working Group 2, which is the impacts. And so that will be released next year, and Working Group 3 later that year. So the only part of it's been released. Last time, the global warming denier community really attacked the IPCC report, and there hasn't been as much of that this time. Last time there were a couple mistakes in Working Group 2. There was a typo in terms of when the glaciers were going to melt in the Himalayas, and they made that into a really big deal and sort of attacked the whole structure of IPCC, which is, it's a different way of framing things. Lawyers find one chink in a logical stream and then the whole case falls apart. But in science, it's like a big house and there's lots of bricks, and if one brick breaks, the whole house doesn't fall down. And so nothing is perfect, but so they found no mistakes in Working Group 1 report last time, and so far none this time at all. So I think the consensus that humans are causing climate change is really seeping into the consciousness and of society. It's different in different countries, of course. Some countries have more of a denier movement where they try and confuse people about the science, but I think more and more people accept it, and this just sort of re-emphasizes what we know.
And then we've sort of talked about this a little bit already, but what topics do you think will be covered in the future reports and also the future assessments?
I hope there aren't any future reports. I mean, we know enough now to do something about it, and there's no need in waiting. We can't wait anymore for new reports. We'll get more details, but we all know that you have to make decisions based on imperfect information. We do that every day in our lives. We make decisions without knowing everything, and so you don't have to know everything. The message is so clear that if society wants to deal with global warming, we already have enough information. I think there will be better climate models in the future. We'll have faster computers. We'll have a better understanding of the climate system. We'll be able to look at things in more detail and include maybe a few more processes in the models. And that will go on in the future, but I don't think we have to wait to make any decisions. One of the important things will be adapting to future climate change, and that requires knowing how different regions will change. And that's one of the areas where we know less than the global averages. And so we'll be able to help people in the future adapt to climate change by looking at the regional patterns. But getting back to one of your questions, there is one thing new in the IPCC report, and I'm responsible for it. This is the first time the IPCC report addresses the impacts of nuclear war on climate, nuclear winter. I was a lead author of Chapter 8, and I added a paragraph about using volcanic eruptions as an analog to understanding the effects of smoke from fires in the atmosphere. And I was able to get it to stay into the report. And I'm giving a talk about how I did that at the AMS meeting in February in Atlanta.
All right, and how can the public contribute to the success of these reports?
The public really doesn't have much of a role. This is scientific community, experts in all these different fields getting together and assessing the literature that's been done before. The review process allows anybody that wants to sign up to be a reviewer, and they want to make sure that you're not a crackpot, so they do a little bit of background on people, but basically anybody that wants to. So if somebody knows something about it, they could still help to review Working Group 2 and Working Group 3 reports. I think the best thing the public can do is to read it, to educate themselves. There's a technical summary, there's a summary for policymakers, summary for policymakers is pretty short, and it gives the lead messages. And so just read that and learn about what the current consensus is about climate science.
All right, great. That's all we have for you today. Thank you very much.
Sure.
With all of this information, we urge you to take a look at the IPCC report and develop your ideas even further. You can find the full report and also the summary for policymakers at the website listed below. You can also find weather-related information from Rutgers at wx.rutgers.edu or by following Weather Watcher on social media. We would like to take this opportunity to once again thank Dr. Alan Robock for his help explaining the IPCC report today, and also all of the other scientists for their contributions to the report. For RUTV's Weather Watcher, I'm Tyler Case.